Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. So, a lot of interesting things went down in this episode. Obviously, like, the team learns more so about the time loop, because obviously last episode when we saw everything with Robin, like, that was a team that after they had come back and known about the time loop, which I always kept referring to it as a circle, like, oh, the whole time, circle thing of like this happens and this happens, but this happened because, that whole confusing thing, rather than saying a time loop, because I couldn't think of the word at the time, the multiple times I've had this discussion about this particular subject. Nevertheless, it seems like Gemma and Fitz know about the time loop now because of like the anti-gravity stuff. It's like, oh, whoa, it's here and it's on the Zephyr and it's on the Lighthouse. It's like, that can't be a coincidence. It's us. The fact of the matter is this whole situation. And so we built this, and the reason why we built this is because we saw this, and it turns into a whole like paradoxical time loop situation, which they don't really get a chance to really explain that to the rest of the team. But it seems like they're almost in the same mindset, because last episode we saw it too. Fitz was like, there's no point. What's the point? We know what was going to happen, and it still didn't change anything. So that does beg the question, what's different this time? Because each time something has to be a little bit different in each time loop to try and make any change. Like, say for example, this is like because I think I brought up the Magicians as an example last time about like how the whole time loop thing. I'm wondering like what attempt is this in the whole grand scheme of things of trying to make this right? Like, how many different times of them going back in time can you see? I mean, guess with the way time travel works and everything, technically it's like an infinite loop. So there's like an infinite amount of them at different points in time doing this whole full circle thing. But the question is like, what attempt is this 39? And is there anything different? Like Robin's contributions, has she changed things a little bit each time? Once again, there's the whole aspect of like the two different timelines kind of colliding in her head. It's the original timeline when it's like, oh yeah, this is the timeline. It's just, I don't know. Because it gets a little confusing, because last episode it's like, well, there's a timeline that we're experiencing right now. This timeline, we'll call this timeline B, and timeline A is them after they've already returned and try to fix everything, but it didn't work. So, which is kind of interesting, because it's not really a separate timeline, is it? It's the same timeline, arguably. So they just went back. So I guess it's like this point of timeline A and this point of timeline A, rather than it being two separate timelines, it's actually the same timeline, isn't it? Once I've said countless of times, time travel is confusing, especially because I'm pretty sure I'm overthinking it, but I feel like you can't help but overthink it with time travel. But nevertheless, I'm sure there's a much simpler breakdown. I'm sure there's someone out there who's simply broken it down. That's like, idiot, it works like this, and this. I would really appreciate it if you broke it down for me, because I feel like I'm overthinking it way too much. But nevertheless. So like I said, it's just interesting. I am curious to see like what will go down, what will be different this timeline compared to any other time they were in the future and then come back to the past and try and fix things, because it's like no matter what they do, everything kind of works that way. Because like in this particular case, you have like Daisy wanting to like keep the inhibitor. It's like, let's just leave it there. I mean, we don't really need Quake. I mean, I'm very capable as an agent, just Agent Daisy Johnson, which she is. But it's like, oh, we want you at full strength. But she's like, as long as I have the inhibitor, I don't have to worry about it. But that begs the question, when you went back to the past and you still, quote unquote, destroy the world, that must have meant you had the inhibitor, which once again, like I said, it's hard to understand whether or not they understand that they're in a time loop type of situation. Because it's like, oh, I'm afraid you're going to go back in time and destroy the world. So, but like I said, Gemma and Fitz kind of understand that. Maybe they'll kind of explain it to everyone next episode. But obviously she had her powers in, because everyone's saying she supposedly destroyed the world. So it's like, how did she lose the inhibitor? She's yet to use it now, but eventually something's going to happen to most likely and get rid of that. Still, I am still on the fence. I still think if anyone did it, it has to be Flint, just because of his powers, like the whole Earth thing. It's like I said, Daisy herself says it herself. It's like, I'm not that strong. I'm not strong enough to do something like that. And like, how could Daisy get from that powerful, being as powerful as she is now, to being that powerful? Because it doesn't seem like it's that far into the future. But like I said, maybe different circumstances. I don't know. I think Daisy tried to stop whoever it was. And it ended up Daisy probably thought to herself, it's like, oh, it was me. I got to do something to get myself out of this situation. I got to stop myself. So whatever she was doing that day during that recording Voss showed him last episode, it's like, no, it's probably her trying to stop herself, because she's like, okay, this is the day it all happens. This is all my fault. Probably tries to go away. Maybe the rest of the team is trying to stop her. But then it turns out like, oh no, like she thinks it's her, but in actuality, it's someone else doing it. Once again, my money's on Flint, but we'll just have to wait and see on that. So. I mean, she held herself pretty well against Sonara. Still, Sonara kind of got an upper hand. Like I said, that fight would have went way different because Sonara also doesn't have those little spinning spears of death she usually uses to finish people off. So it was kind of a straight up fight, but Sonara had the upper hand. Luckily, Deacon came in. Now, I was really surprised by that because I was wondering where Deacon was going to go in this episode because Voss brought up the whole conversation like, you need to do this. Like, I killed your dad, but that's just because we got in a heated moment. Your dad, he was very steadfast in his beliefs, and the fact is we had differences of opinions about how this should be handled. Because from the very beginning, like, eventually it's like, okay, we bring them here. Deacon's dad was like, okay, prophesize, they'll save the world. Like, they have some, like, fix-it-all solution. Whereas, like, Voss was kind of like, no, we kill them and we, everything gets fixed. It's kind of like the difference of opinion that they had. Basically, he said that Deacon's dad pulled a knife on him first and he was just defending himself. So whether that's true or not, I don't know. But he does bring up the conversation like, well, you do this because the fact of the matter is you don't even have to kill Quake. All you have to do is let Cassius have her. What's the worst that can happen? It's like, what will happen if she does go back to the past. But then I would argue the question, how do you know things won't be worse if Cassius got Daisy? Because Daisy is like a super powerful inhuman. And what if he got her under his control? Like, what if he forces Daisy to use her powers, even though she doesn't want to? Maybe she ends up becoming a weapon for him. Not just him, for the Kree. You claim that Daisy destroyed a planet. So you're going to give a person that destroys planets to Cassius of all people who thinks and treats humans as bugs. Like, I think that's a flaw in your argument, Maybe that's what's in Deacon's head. I don't know, because he even kind of inadvertently has a conversation with Daisy about, well, wouldn't it be the right thing to kind of take care of this person so they won't harm other people? But I think even Deacon's not really all about killing people, because even the way he handled Daisy is like, what did he do? He gave her over to Cassius, sure, but it's just like, that was a way of making sure he could have easily done something. He could have taken that opportunity to kill her or something like that, but he didn't, So it was just really interesting that he ended up sticking up for her in this particular episode and then promptly getting his ass handed to him by Sonara. Because Deacon's not a fighter. Kind of a pragmatist, kind of a survivor, but not a fighter. So I'm just curious, like, what was going through his head during that whole situation. Maybe in his eyes, it's like, maybe he kind of wants to believe the same thing as his dad. It's like, my dad believed in this. He died for his beliefs. Maybe I should carry on that torch for him. Maybe he wants to believe. He doesn't want to, because he doesn't want to take Voss's words either. It's like, what did you do? You killed my dad. Not only did he do that, did you do that? You also killed Robin too, you piece of crap. It's like, the fact of the matter is the world could have used her, like, her visions, but it's like, because you were so content in your head of believing you were in the right, you doomed the world in this regard, which is so interesting because I should have brought this up last episode, but I'll bring it up this episode. It's weird because the actor who plays Voss is obviously, he plays Holden's dad Tom on Beyond, so it's weird seeing him in both shows, and I'm like, oh, you're a dick on this show, but you're a good guy on Beyond and everything. It's just, I don't know, it's just kind of interesting to me. But what else? Oh yeah, I didn't even think, it just clicked in my head. I didn't even think about this when I was watching Beyond. That's Frank from Ray Donovan too. Kind of a douchebag on Ray Donovan too, but nevertheless, it was just kind of something that kind of popped in my head. But nevertheless, which is kind of messed up to say considering like Frank's story in season 5 of Ray Donovan. Obviously, I won't go into spoilers, but nevertheless, so I don't know, it's just kind of an interesting thing. I thought it was kind of interesting too that basically everyone that was there on the Zephyr has moved underground, Voss included. So all those people who trying to work with Voss to kill Daisy, them and anyone else that was staying on the Zephyr have all moved into that cave because of the gravity storms and everything. So I thought it was pretty neat, the whole situation of them using the gravity storms to lift themselves up, and then like, I don't know, just that whole like, I even love later on that Simmons is like, okay, this was a terrible plan, I'm sorry. Even Deacon's like, okay, something's wrong with me because I used to be all about survival, and here I am literally on this ship because it's like, this is a terrible idea, right? That wouldn't work, right? And just that whole conversation. I also appreciate May and Phil having that conversation of like, hey, like, she's like, I can't imagine me being a mom, which Phil's like, yeah, I mean, I can. And then, you see May smile, and then Daisy's, because she's over here in the conversation, is like, yeah, you're probably that type of mom who's like, takes away the cell phone and is like, oh, you have like this 7:30 curfew. And she looks up and May just kind of gives her like the stink eye, and she's like, yeah, and that type of face. I'm like, that's so cute and so true. You can almost imagine her, because it's almost interesting when you looked at her, like how she was with Ruby. It was like, I don't know, because it does seem like May would be kind of the stern parent a little bit, just because, because it's just how May is. May is a very disciplined person, so you would assume that that doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't translate over, because which isn't to say just because you're stern doesn't mean you're not compassionate. Because we saw her easily with Robin. That's no shape or form did that cross my mind, but it's just like, I don't know, it's just kind of interesting, because you always know she's a very compassionate person. People might have the perception that she's not just because she's kind of on the heavy hitter of the team, but it's like, no, she's a very caring person. She kind of wears her heart on her sleeve sometimes, even though she might try and hide it. But nevertheless, another big side of this story in this episode was about the lighthouse itself and everyone working together. They're taking down the blues. Cassius is getting more and more pissed. Also, turns out he brought Tess back to life, which I'm excited about, because I'm like, oh my god, because I was like, I felt like they had more to do with Tess, and it's just like, oh, she's dead. I was like, wow, I was expecting her to stick around just because of the way they set her up at the beginning of the season. It's like, oh, she's back. I mean, granted, we don't know how the whole revive, like they made a reference to that this episode about resurrecting people, and I was like, I'm trying to remember about that. I'm like, has it? They brought it up like it's a thing that's happened, but I don't really remember that happening too much in the show. Like I said, I'm blanking on it. Like they were referencing something that I don't remember. Like the whole bringing people back from the dead. I'm trying to think. Even in the grand scheme of the MCU, has that been referenced? Sure, Daredevil, but that's the Hand. That doesn't count. That's its own thing. Like what they're referencing now, I don't know. It seems like it's like science and technology, but I don't know what it is that they were referencing about, like how almost like, this has happened before. If you do know, let me know, because it's been a while since I've seen earlier seasons of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D., so it might be something I'm blanking on. It might be something that's a lot more recent than I'm blanking on, but nevertheless. The fact is, Tess is back from the dead, which is interesting. Stuff in other mediums, in other TV shows, kind of make you go, coming back from the dead doesn't always mean the best thing. So I'm curious, what her whole situation's like. Is she just back from the dead, or is there ramifications to it? Like, what does that mean for her? Is she the same person 100%? Something we're gonna have to keep our eye out going forward. But what's also kind of an interesting thing in this episode is Mac trying to keep everyone calm, trying to keep Yo-Yo and Flint calm, because it's like they are kind of like, oh, y'all kind of kill happy right now. It's like, because Mac is like, yeah, Flint's kind of enjoying that a little too much. He's getting a little too comfortable and too eager to kill people, which Yo-Yo's kind of like, oh, the fact of the matter is we got to fight. But Mac is like, we don't need to go to that extreme, because basically it's with me riling up other people from different floors who might not be fighters and getting them, it turns into a bad situation. Matt kind of trying to be the more level-headed one. Which obviously, Yo-Yo, you can understand where she's coming from, because it's like, this is our only way of protecting everyone. It's like, Mac is a little more we need to be more tactful. We need to, not tactful, but tactical is kind of what I meant to say, sorry. Whereas Yo-Yo is kind of no, let's kind of rush and go full force. So different approaches, ultimately the same goal with different outcomes, obviously, so. But ultimately, Cassius is like, yeah, you turn yourselves in, or I'm going to blow up the lighthouse and kill all of you humans, wiping you out. Because basically he's placed bombs all over these different points on the floors near oxygen, the outputs for the oxygen, so that the fire will spread and explode. So they end up talking to Cassius. It's like, you come see us or we blow up your research. I was wondering if that was going to be I was wondering if they had anything else to go on with that, but it's like the whole thing was a setup, a trap. So kind of playing it a little tactical, kept Cassius talking long enough. I also appreciate when they met him, it's like, oh, Mac is almost like, really? This wasn't what I was expecting, which is like, wow, you're like the big baddie and everything. It's like, you're like, that's super sad, because like, oh, you're the big baddie? You're super underwhelming. We thought, some great Kree person is like, you kind of look like a punk. And I'm like, I kind of feel bad for Cassius. It's like, yeah, we've come across some bad guys before, but it's like, you're nothing. You're just kind of a, I don't know. Which the fact of the matter is, kind of is, just because it's like, well, all he really has is he doesn't really have anything going for him, because it's like, oh, what is his weapon? His weapon is Sonara. Which that point, I don't even think I brought that up earlier. Yeah, Sonara's dead. That was kind of interesting. Daisy did it without the powers too, so that's kind of going, especially because she's very important to Cassius, so that's eventually going to set him off. If he doesn't already know, either, because he brought up that whole conversation about him having a seer, which I'm curious about, like what that is. Is it like the Kree has one in general, or is there another Inhuman that he made that also has that ability? Because we haven't come across it yet, but can like Inhumans have duplicate abilities? Because that's a conversation that got, like I always reference in season 2, they make it, Lincoln kind of brought it up that basically, was it season? I want to say it was season 2. He brought it up that basically all Inhuman abilities exist as kind of a balance. Like there, for one Inhuman ability to exist, there is another ability to balance it, because there has to be balance in kind of like in the grand scheme of things, you know, balance of nature essentially. So there's always something that kind of an opposed, like where there might be a fire Inhuman ability, there has to be a water Inhuman ability out there somewhere to kind of balance it out. Essentially, it's kind of how it works. So. But I don't think we've ever come across it in particular, like, at least not to this point, like a repeat ability when it comes to Inhumans. But maybe that's what it is. Like I said, maybe it's a Kree. I don't know, like, how that whole situation would happen. Because Robin was the only seer that we knew of, so, like, who's the other one? So, maybe it's not even an Inhuman thing. Maybe it is, like, you know, not even just a Kree thing. Maybe it's someone hooked up to a machine, kind of forcing them to do that. It might have something to do with the, now that I think about it, like, the technology is there, and they have access to all of human technology. Might have something to do with, like, Ada, you know, because, like, you know, her being a powerful and strong machine, like if they tap into her, she could probably use probability to be like, oh, this and this is most likely to happen. But the fact is that know something exactly like that, it seems like more of a mystical, like seer type of thing, rather than like a calculation from a machine thing. So like I said, I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. But basically, Cassius kind of has suffered a big loss in this episode, because not only were all the humans saved, he also lost all of his research. So he's like super far behind, lost Tess because she left with Flint, Yo-Yo, and Mac. So he's super pissed. Well, it was also interesting because we saw the place shaking a little bit. Part of me I wonder, was that them kind of like doing that from like a directional point of view, being like, oh yeah, look at the screen shaking, because it's showing like, oh, basically his world is crumbling while also the lighthouse is shaking from like, you know, the explosions and everything. Plus he's kind of lost it all. But there was a part of me that was wondering, like, was that him using kind of some kind of power he hasn't shown yet? Which I'm like, if he had powers, he would have shown them by now. So makes you wonder, does he ever plan on, like, I beg the question, I mean, maybe that's come up before. Can Kree become Inhumans? I am curious about that. Because, I mean, who's to say he doesn't just use the research on himself to make himself more powerful? And it's like, okay, I won't need you. I mean, I guess there's also the possibility that, well, I mean, you know, because it all stems from them, so I don't know if it'd be something plausible, or, you know, I don't know. It might not genetically work with them. Maybe it can only work with human DNA, you know? Eventually, maybe that would be something he does, like tamper with it to the point like, okay, I don't need you anymore, World Destroyer. I'll take this all upon myself. So, you know, maybe he'll kind of gain an ability and he's like, okay, I'll use this to crush all of humanity. Then I'll go back and please my father or something. Like I said, this is still him not knowing Sonara's dead potential. Like I said, depends all on his seer and everything. So for right now, it looks like they're winning on all fronts. The groups are about to reunite again. The humans are kind of saved for now, so it's kind of like our final strikes heading towards Cassius. So we'll see how this all plays out in the next episode, because I'm very interested to see what goes down with all of this. Like, what else does Cassius have planned? Because he did seem pissed earlier, but after he talked to his quote-unquote seer, it seemed like it's a lot more calm. And it's like, okay, we're going to go to the landing dock and meet with the others. Like, the Destroyer is here again, so like, what's going to happen? We will just have to wait and see. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good